Virgo, breathe. Actually breathe. Don't just keep reading. Stop for 3 seconds and take an actual breath. Because what I'm about to tell you requires you to be in your body, not just in your head. Requires you to be grounded, not spinning. Requires you to be present with what is, instead of already catastrophizing about what might be. There's a disruption coming, or it's already started, a dismantling, a breaking down of structures, patterns, dynamics that have been holding your reality in a particular shape. And that shape, it's been limiting you, containing you, keeping you smaller than you're meant to be, even if it's felt safe, familiar, manageable. And now something's breaking that container. Something's shattering the pattern. Something's forcing a reset. Whether you feel ready for it or not, stay with me. Because a reset isn't a punishment. It's not evidence that you did something wrong or that the universe is against you. It's not chaos for chaos's sake. A reset is recalibration. It's the natural response when what you've outgrown can no longer contain who you're becoming. It's what happens when your internal evolution requires external circumstances to catch up. And it's happening now, or it's about to, and you can feel it. That's why you're here. That's why this resonated. That's why something in you said, yes, this is for me right now. Can you feel it? That sense that something fundamental is shifting? Drop a comment if you're already in the middle of this. Because here's what I'm picking up on about what's actually resetting. This isn't about one thing changing. This isn't a minor adjustment or a small course correction. This is foundational. This is structural. This is about the basic framework of how you've been living, relating, operating, and that framework is dissolving. Maybe it's your understanding of a relationship that you thought was solid but is revealing itself to be something else entirely. And that revelation is forcing you to rebuild your entire concept of that connection from the ground up. Maybe it's your professional identity that you've invested years in building, but that no longer fits who you've become. And the mismatch is creating so much internal friction that staying becomes impossible. Maybe it's your living situation, your location, your physical environment that's been stable for so long but is suddenly unstable, and that instability is forcing movement you've been resisting. Maybe it's your belief system, your worldview, your understanding of how things work that's being challenged by reality that doesn't match your assumptions. And the cognitive dissonance is demanding integration at a fundamental level. Whatever the specific content, it's big, it's disruptive. It's the kind of thing that makes you question everything you thought you knew. Which area of your life feels most unstable right now? Let me know in the comments. Because here's what you need to understand about why resets feel so destabilizing. They require you to let go of certainty, to release control, to admit that the way you've been understanding things might not be accurate. And humans, we don't like that. We like certainty. We like control. We like having frameworks that help us make sense of our experience. So when those frameworks start crumbling, when the certainty dissolves, when control becomes obviously impossible, we panic. We resist. We try to force things back into the familiar shape, even when that shape no longer fits. But that resistance, it just makes the reset more painful. It prolongs the transition. It creates suffering that isn't actually necessary, because the reset is happening whether you resist it or not. The only question is whether you're going to fight it every step of the way or whether you're going to work with it. Have you been resisting, fighting against what's clearly trying to shift? Comment below if you're recognizing this pattern. Because let me tell you what resistance looks like in the context of a reset. It looks like trying to hold together what's clearly falling apart, trying to maintain dynamics that are obviously no longer working, trying to force understanding where there's fundamental incompatibility. It looks like denial, telling yourself that things aren't as bad as they seem, convincing yourself that if you just try harder, understand better, love more, the pattern will hold. It looks like bargaining, making deals with yourself about what you'll accept if only the disruption will stop, lowering standards to avoid having to face the full scope of what needs to change. It looks like blame, making it someone else's fault that things are shifting, externalizing the disruption so you don't have to acknowledge your own role in creating the conditions that made reset necessary. And none of that works. None of that stops the reset. It just makes you suffer more through the process. So here's what I need you to hear. Stop resisting. Stop fighting. Stop trying to control what's clearly beyond your control. Not because resistance is morally wrong, but because it's strategically ineffective and energetically exhausting. The reset is happening. Your reality is shifting. The old structures are dissolving, and you can either exhaust yourself trying to prevent what's inevitable, or you can redirect that energy toward consciously participating in what comes next. Does that feel like permission you needed? Let me know in the comments, because I want to talk about what stay calm actually means in this context. It doesn't mean don't feel anything. It doesn't mean suppress your fear or anxiety or grief about what's changing. It means don't let the feelings drive the decisions. Don't make reactive choices from panic. Don't do things from fear that you'll regret when you're back to baseline. Feel what you feel. Process what needs processing. Let yourself grieve what's ending, even if what's ending needed to end. But from underneath that feeling layer, stay connected to your center. Stay grounded in what you know to be true about yourself. Stay anchored in your values even when circumstances are chaotic, because that's what gets you through. Resets intact, not avoiding the feelings, but not letting the feelings hijack your clarity. You can be scared and still make wise choices. You can be grieving and still honor your boundaries. You can be uncertain about the future and still trust yourself in the present. Have you been letting fear make your decisions? Drop a comment if you need this reminder, because here's what else I'm sensing about this reset. There's something on the other side of it that you can't access without going through it. Something you've been wanting, hoping for, working toward, but the path to it requires dismantling what currently exists. You can't build the new without clearing space from the old. You can't step into the next version of your life while still clinging to the previous one. And this reset, it's creating that space. It's clearing the ground. It's demolishing structures that were blocking your expansion, even if they felt like shelter. So yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's scary. Yes, there are moments where you're going to wonder if you can handle this. But what's on the other side It's what you've been building toward. It's the life that actually matches who you've become. It's the reality that reflects your growth instead of your history. And you can't get there without this, without the clearing, without the reset, without the dismantling of what no longer serves. Can you trust that? Can you trust that this destruction is actually creation in disguise? Let me know in the comments, because I want to be specific about what this reset might actually involve. For some of you, it's going to be relational. A connection you thought was permanent, revealing itself to be temporary. A dynamic you invested in heavily, showing you it can't give what you need. A person you built your life around, demonstrating they can't meet you where you are now. And that's going to hurt. It's going to feel like loss, even if rationally you know it's necessary. It's going to create grief, even if you are the one choosing to walk away. But the reset is clearing that space, making room for connections that can actually sustain who you're becoming, creating availability for people who match your current frequency instead of your past patterns. For others, it's going to be professional, a career path you've been on for years reaching a dead end, a role you've identified with becoming obsolete, a vision you've been pursuing revealing itself to be someone else's dream, not yours. And that's going to be disorienting. It's going to shake your sense of identity. It's going to make you question who you are if you're not that thing anymore. But the reset is freeing you, releasing you from a path that was never truly aligned, creating space for work that actually expresses who you are instead of who you thought you should be. For others, still, it's going to be internal, a belief system collapsing under the weight of evidence that contradicts it, a self-concept shattering because it was built on false premises, a worldview dissolving because reality refuses to conform to it. And that's going to be destabilizing. It's going to feel like the ground beneath your feet is gone. It's going to create existential vertigo. But the reset is clearing illusions, stripping away false narratives, bringing you into contact with what's actually true instead of what you've been telling yourself is true. Which type of reset feels most relevant to your current experience? Comment below and let me know. Because here's what happens during a reset that most people don't talk about. There's a period where you're between stories, where the old narrative has dissolved but the new one hasn't formed yet, where you don't know who you are or what you're doing or where you're going. And that period, it's uncomfortable, it's disorienting. It activates every fear about being lost, being wrong, being unable to figure it out. But it's also necessary, because you can't write a new story while still clutching the old one. You have to be willing to be in the unknown for a while, to not have answers, to sit with I don't know instead of forcing premature clarity. And that sitting, that's where the real transformation happens. That's where you discover what's actually true beneath all the narratives. That's where you find out who you are when you're not performing identity. So if you're in that space right now, if you feel lost, if you don't know what's next, that's okay. That's part of the process. That's evidence that you're in the reset, not evidence that you're doing it wrong. Just stay present. Don't rush to create a new story just to avoid the discomfort of not having one. Don't grab on to the first thing that makes you feel stable, even if it's not actually aligned. Trust the unknown. Trust the dissolution. Trust that clarity will come when you're ready for it and not before. Have you been in this between space, this not knowing zone? Let me know in the comments, because I want to talk about what comes after the reset. There's a rebuilding phase, a reconstruction period, a time when you get to consciously choose what you bring into the new reality and what you leave behind. And that's where your power is, not in controlling whether the reset happens, but in deciding what you build from the cleared ground. You get to choose different patterns, different dynamics, different ways of relating to yourself and others in the world. You get to build from what you've learned instead of repeating what you've always done. You get to create from vision instead of defaulting to habit. And that opportunity, it's rare. Most people go through life repeating the same patterns because they never get the clearing that makes different choices possible. But you're getting that clearing right now through this reset. So when the dust settles, when the chaos calms, when you're standing in the cleared space, build consciously, build intentionally. Build from alignment with who you've become instead of comfort with what's familiar. That's how you make the reset worth it. That's how you ensure you don't just recreate the same limitations in a slightly different form. Can you commit to building differently? Drop a comment if you're ready for that, because here's what I really want you to take from this. The reset is